And we are back, everybody. Barbara, welcome to Awakening Aphrodite.
Well, thank you, Amy. I love your flowers you're wearing for spring. Looks great.
Oh, you know what? Thank you very much. And today is almost a little bit spring life. I'm recording this in New England. I'm in northern Massachusetts. And we had a hell of a winter. And I'm like you, I'm a California girl. Oh, man, it was rough for me. We had sub-zero wind chills and ice storms. It was crazy. But we had a couple days that were almost 50, and I think I'm going to survive.
Good.
Yeah. And you're in what, like San Diego area still?
Yes.
County?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you
San
born
Diego.
and raised there?
No, I'm from Northern Cal, but and I do like the seasons, but yeah, it's spring here now.
Yeah, excellent. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, I am super grateful and thrilled to have you on the show and have you all to myself, because in researching my course, Goddess Rising, in my online membership community, I came across your very important work on archetypes of the feminine. So we are very much aligned. And boy, you've got a couple books and you've got the foundation, and the work you've done is just, wow, just hats off to you. Amazing work. And I'm thrilled to have you here today to help explain to us your perception of these prominent female archetypes, these blueprints that all of us can tap into and learn from and help self-actualize ourselves. So why don't we start with your rendition, a little synopsis of your story?
Well, actually, I've published 3 books. The first was Unbridled, is my discovery of memoir of freedom. And then I published another book called Wounded Warrior, Wounded Wife, because as a physical therapist, I work with caregivers and I help them write their stories. And through starting a support group for them, we came up with, which I've been working on for probably 20 years, a book, 4 Faces of Femininity. And it's the model I use in helping women find out where they want their path to go, who inspires them, by holding up mirrors as reflections. So if we see a quality we like in somebody else, we can tap into that quality within ourselves. So that's how the book that we're mainly talking about is my latest, 4 Faces of Femininity. I use it in workshops with women, and it's also a great coffee table book too. So it's just beautiful photos and inspiration, and it does have a workbook too that goes along with it. So you can take it. It's pretty heavy, so I think you could take it in little pieces.
It's such a great concept, your book, because why don't you explain to people? I mean, frankly, I think it's kind of unique, because you don't just talk about the archetypes and then, kind of intellectualize it, but rather you give examples. So why don't you expand on that a little for the audience?
Well, the only thing I think is a new perspective is thinking in categories of not just masculine, feminine, but within us. I took the liberty to use Carl Jung's ideas, but put it into 4 concepts. So the nurturer, the mother, we all know we have within us. The lover, the Aphrodite, we all know we have within us. And the warrior, which is sometimes harder for women to grasp because they think that's masculine. Now, I put it as a feminine quality and gave examples of feminine women who are warriors, like Cleopatra, like Tammy Duckworth, who fought for the rights for amputees. Because I work with the disabled, that was a great one for me. And we'll go more into it. But so the 4 concepts are the mother, the nurturer, the lover, Aphrodite, the warrior, and the sage, or our inner wisdom, the wise woman within us. So that's how I characterized it. Of course, there's so many architects or archetypes, we could characterize them differently. But I think the most unique way is my perspective of bringing in what sometimes we think of as masculine, as a warrior and a sage. We all know the mothering, nurturing part is very feminine. And we all know Aphrodite is very feminine, but I like to claim as a feminine quality too, the sage. You're a writer, you're a speaker. There was a time women couldn't write. They had to write under men's names, and all wisdom came from men. So I'm giving examples of sage women, wise women. And there was a time, and still so, that women weren't seen as strong and warrior-like, but I wanted to really tap into that really we are strong within, whether it's our ability to set a goal. It's not necessarily we're a warrior, we go to war, but just the inner strength we have within us. That's feminine quality.
I love that you're going there right here at the start, because I agree that's such a misunderstood, very prominent, I call it a core archetype of the feminine, is the warrior, and one that we need in this day and age. And the warrior is, I've heard you refer to it before as the part of us that has the grit, right? I call it the goals. So the goals and the grit. It's that part of you that's driven, that is in touch. You're actualized enough that you know what's important to you and what you think is worth fighting for, and what values are in your heart that you want to reinforce in the world. And it's that mother bear quality, right? It's that someone who understands their contribution and knows their boundaries. And I know we're going to talk about boundaries when it comes to the mother, but it's funny how the stages are kind of a progression, at least in my work, in the course that I'm doing. I actually start with the maiden, the child, and how it's kind of a chronological progression through, although you integrate each one as you evolve and self-actualize, right? You want to learn the lesson of each one and integrate it in who you are to take it with you to the next stage so you're able to successfully complete that stage. But I think, to your point, that the warrior is such an important one, Barbara, because it's really vogue right now to kind of like the goddess rising mentality, right? The rebirth of the feminine. And a lot of it is warranted because of the patriarchy and the over-masculinization in a long time. But a lot of it is female women that identify as feminine women. They don't want to be mini men, right? Which is what happened in the 80s, right? With the shoulder pads and the whole get in the workplace. And I mean, I was in that, and that's part of why I started my show, Awakening Aphrodite, because I was way over masculinized. I mean, I liked being a woman, but my headset, my mind was like a man. And I had to totally pull it back. I basically crashed and burned and was like, all right, this isn't working. I got to pull in my Aphrodite. I got to understand and embrace the feminine in me. And how do I keep that warrior in me, that Artemis in me that I have had very strong, but incorporate and make room for the feminine as well? So I'd love for you to explain to us what you think about how can we navigate being the warrior, being strong, being centered in our values, having to know how to say no and what we stand up for and use our voice for what's important to us, but still maintain our feminine nature and not become the bitch or the overbearing or whatever, just abrasive, right? How do we maintain the feminine but tap into the warrior tactfully and successfully?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Elizabeth Gilbert says there's no such thing as balance. We're always off balance. Right. So I like to use the word integrate instead of balance. Sometimes I can be too much of a bitch, too strong. Sometimes I think, instead of saying, we're never in perfect balance, but I like to use the word integrate. So if I'm too extreme in any of these, whether it's a mother, if all I'm doing is the martyr mother, I'm going to build up resentments. If all I am is the lover, that could be sex trafficking, that could be being abused. I mean, if we don't have anything except the lover within us, it could also be addictions. If we take off too much, like we all love to have a good time, but if we take off too much in that way, so that's detrimental. And the same with the warrior. But I am impressed that you thought your warrior was too strong, because my experience, my warrior wasn't strong enough. And in most women, I feel like that's a harder one to tap into, because we want to be liked. We don't want to be seen as a bitch. We want to be, and we're not really reinforced in society for being strong and setting goals. And that's to me has been the hardest to help women do, because they're all nurturers. They all love to have a good time, even though sometimes it's hard to tap into that lover. The warrior is a harder one to tap into, but I'm impressed you tapped into it. And when we integrate the other qualities, we become more successful. The other joke is if men would read, then there'd be more books for men. But it's true for men too. So I think of Obama as very charismatic. And so he kind of brought in, he was not only strong, but he was likable and charismatic. And most presidents are, because you can't get that far without being charismatic. And so I think of the charismatic as the Aphrodite. Just like when we're doing anything in a business, wherever we are, we want to bring in Aphrodite, that charismatic side, to seduce our clients or just be loving to them, and we want to bring in the mother to be nurturing. So I mean, men work on integrating these four also. But since our focus, or my focus, is working with women, I concentrate on the women. So I like to use women role models, but I did that integrate all four. Now, none of us do it perfectly. That's why I didn't give examples of integrated women in the book, because nobody does it perfectly. This is all just a challenge that we're on in this life, to integrate our four qualities that I've listed that are archetypes. But it's a journey, and I'm impressed that you felt like your warrior was too strong. I've never actually heard that before. So good for you.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Well, geez, in my world, yeah, because it's like, again, it's a big push of the show, because Awakening Aphrodite, right, is to kind of bring up that feminine to meet the strong masculine in all of us. And a lot of women in the work world are way over masculinized. I mean, just way too much in their head. The thinking is the masculine, the feeling is the feminine. Really out of touch with that softness and being able to relax, take your foot off the pedal, receive, trust, allow yourself to receive pleasure. All that, as you know, that's the realm of the feminine. And, I grew up in a Puritan work ethic in New England, and a very, a family business. And there was no separation between work and family. And it was, to survive, we had to work all the time. And that was a badge of honor. It was a lot of virtual signaling, like who can be at work the soonest and stay the longest, and sacrifice and all that stuff. So I was way cut off from my feminine of, I just want to relax today, or I would feel guilty not working, like things like that. Or God forbid, I got my nails done, because that was very indulgent, and not productive. And just so all that, I had to change my headset. And I love that in the warrior, you give examples of each of the four in your book. I believe there's 43 total in your book. And one of the warrior is also in my course, of course, Joan of Arc. And she actually mentioned, you've got a great quote from her. It was something about, I don't know if I can find it, but it was something about how it's all a mindset, right? I know. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I love that you put Cleopatra too, because that's another one that's, of course, one of my favorites. And of course, we have Wonder Woman. Well, anyway, you mentioned Joan of Arc is really understands that it all. I think her quote is something like, "It all starts and ends with the mindset," and that's such a key thing for the warrior to understand. But as far as Aphrodite, why don't we go there? Because I think again, a lot of women, we have trouble, even men, people, we have trouble allowing pleasure, not feeling guilty. I mean, we hear about the self-care, right? And why we feel self-care is selfish and all this garbage. But we still feel just a little bit guilty. And gosh, my own mother, I mean, God forbid she kind of relax on a Sunday and stay in her pajamas till 11 or something. She feels unproductive, So how do you have any ideas about, in your experience, like, helping us tap into our Aphrodite, helping us tap into the goddess of pleasure, and really allowing ourselves to feel and not feel guilty about it?
Well, one of my examples of a lover is Mother Teresa. And we said, why, which we usually think of her as a mother, but I put her as a lover because she had passion for what she did. And she was excited about what she did. So that, therefore, she dedicated her life to it. So I think if we can bring our Aphrodite into our work, we'll enjoy our work more because our work is our life, part of our life.
Yeah.
So bringing that lover in, seeing what brought me into this field to begin with, and what do I love about it? Because you're right. If we don't love our work, we're going to burn out and quit. So we find out where is the joy in our work, whether it's parenting or I am curious, what type of work did you do that you felt like you were over masculated?
Well, I was in corporate. So I was doing a lot of like managerial type work, and I was doing a little bit of law. I mean, it was very like corporate and like running, in charge of people and, sections of the business and just, policy, admin, all that stuff. So it was very heady, and it was in a man's industry, and it was with my dad because, again, it was a family environment. And I was very much, I don't know if you've heard the term, Maureen Murdoch talks about it. It's called the father's daughter. I very much over-identified with my father. Grew up, normal, quote unquote, American family, but my dad was the strong one, and my mom was, back in that day, it was, she was kind of the, like the June Cleaver-ish, she was the housewife, But as I got older, Barbara, I realized like, he got all the accolades, like this great businessman, right? But she's the one that enabled him to have that platform to be out in the world. I mean, she's the one. Sometimes I joke, like, I need a wife. Like, I need someone to do all my housework and all my home stuff and be home to let the wash machine repairman in and, take the trash out and like all that, go food shopping. Like a lot of times, women's work wasn't valued, and but it enabled the other half of the partnership to achieve because they were able to then be at work for 10, 12 hours a day. Like otherwise, who's doing all that stuff? So now what happened was women started working and they took on, I forget who coined the term, but the second shift, right? They still ended up doing all the housework while taking on another job and sometimes even still raising the kids. So that's 3 jobs. And where does the job of taking care of yourself come in? The 4th job doesn't happen, right? So to your point, I really over-identified with the masculine because I identified way too much with my dad, and hence the headset, and hence I had to kind of repair that. And I probably did that about 5 years ago or so, and the podcast was a big part of that. And I'm happy to say I feel like I'm much more fully integrated. And I tell people it's like, it's the kind of thing, Barbara, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you don't know any different. Right? It's like you don't know what a great relationship is when you're in a bad one because you're in a bad one and you don't know it can be better. It's like being healthy. You don't know how good you can feel because becomes normal to not feel good. And then you look around and most people don't feel good. But it doesn't have to be that way. And it's I wish people could get a taste of it. That's why I like doing the show with people like you to give us tips. Like, how can we get there? How can we bring more Aphrodite in our lives? How can we bring more pleasure with less guilt? And,
Well, maybe part of it is letting go. I agree with you that it's baby steps. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg says, in order to let women out of the house, men have to come in the house. So when men are in the house, they may not do things the way we would want them to do it, but we still have to give them a chance. So the house kids might not be raised quite how we would want, or the house might not be as clean, but we have to let men come into the house for us to leave, because otherwise we can't get out. And I do, and codependence, a whole nother subject, but it kind of does relate to us setting healthy boundaries, because working with military caregivers, they have to say, I'm leaving, I will be gone from, which all women can do with their spouses and their kids, say, I will be gone from 6 to 9. I need to do this for me, and I will be back at 9. The husband will throw a tizzy and so will the kids. But you have to do that anyways for yourself, and you have to be back at 9, because there's that anxious attachment that they don't want you to leave. So it is really hard for women, and I think that is the warrior in us, to set some healthy boundaries so that we're not codependent and doing everything for everyone else. And that takes the warrior. but it also allows Aphrodite to come in so we don't get burnt out. Like, I
Yes.
totally agree. I see it in women, they can become warriors at mothering. They forget to have fun. Like they're just like, okay, I'm just like you were talking about, you're running everybody at the work, and then you come home and you're running everything at home. It's like, well, where's the fun of life? And that's when we just break down. So I love Awakening Aphrodite. We can bring Aphrodite into everything we do in our life, whether it's mothering at home, whether it's working, whether it's not just self-care, but self-care is just part of who we are, right? Because we laugh at Mother Teresa, like it's almost irreverent to say, but she probably caused the spread of AIDS in Africa, but she was so loving, giving everybody, not to do birth control, but she did it with a passion, So good for her. She loved what she did. Sometimes she was off on the wrong track, we would say now, but at least she loved what she did. So we've got to come from a point of love, right? If we don't love what we do, then it's just a waste of time. So I don't know how in a corporate world to help you. Maybe you can give advice to women that are still in the corporate world to back off a little or bring some levity into their work, because otherwise it's just a futile effort, right?
I think it's really a key about like just stealing those little moments for yourself that make you feel pampered. Like even if it's just adding a 10-minute ritual where it's sometimes, Barbara, it's almost not even what you do, but how you do what you do. Like, for example, lathering yourself in the shower. Like, are you just rushing through the shower because you only got 20 minutes to get ready and you got to get to work and blah, blah, blah? Can you take an extra, 5 minutes, and the way that you clean your body with reverence and with attention and with feeling your fingers on your skin and touching your beautiful body that's your vehicle in this world, and the way that you appreciate, like a mother would touch its baby that it loves, and little things like that, I think help. We have to pamper ourselves. That's a way of loving yourself. And that's an Aphrodite-esque task or action that I think it'll make us feel less resentful. Like, where's the juice in my life? Where is that sexiness, that sensuality, even the way we eat? Like how many of us just stand up, eat in the kitchen and scarf the food down and we barely taste it? Eating is a huge pleasure, and it's how you're eating, right? Are you even tasting it? Are you letting your body fully experience what you're doing? You've got a great quote in your Aphrodite section from author Isabel Andali. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but she says Aphrodite is about lust and gluttony, the only two sins worth committing, in my opinion. It's like, yay. I mean, good. It's like giving ourselves healthy pleasures is really what keeps us juicy and not dried up and just not. I mean, that's the attractiveness, right?
Right. And it just doesn't seem like men have a hard time doing that. It seems like men, because they think of course I play golf. Of course I got to dinner with my friends. And I think for women, like you said, it's about loving ourselves to say, of course I go to lunch with my girlfriends and enjoy it. Of course I go get massages. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's loving ourselves enough to say, yeah, we do that. And it's not either or, it's and. Taking time for ourselves makes us more present for the people in our lives, whoever they are. Do you have children too? I'm not sure.
I don't have human children, but I've got 13 dependents. I've got animal babies that are.
Oh my gosh.
I am very much a mother, very much. And I really learned a hard lesson the last 2 years about sacrificing in my time. My time was my own. I mean, I had one dog before that, but please, it's nothing like 13 animals. So, but there's only so many hours in the day. So I very much got a very rough lesson empathizing with mothers and the juggling that we do. And like, where's my time come in? Like, they have needs. I have to provide for their needs. They're dependent on me. So my needs oftentimes get pushed aside. That's being a mother, right? So I have to.
Or is there someone you can ask for help? Do you have anybody that you can ask for help when you need a break?
No, not really. So I had to learn a very, I guess I'm still learning, but I've gotten a lot better at it. Because what happened, Barbara, was it got to the point where my own health was suffering. And I was like, okay, something has to change. And I hope the people watching and listening don't ever get to that it's, most of us don't change until we have to, right? Because we're in so much pain, we're willing to do anything to change something. But I finally was like, look, and it's good for the kids. It's good for the animals. It's good for whomever to learn, like, I'm important too. I took care of you. Now I'm going to take care of me. And you've got to be okay with it. And like you said, you give them, that attachment anxiety, right? You give them like, look, I'm going to take an hour. I'm closing the door of the bathroom. I'm taking a bath, and you guys are going to be fine while I'm in there alone, quiet, so it's like we just have to stand up for our own boundaries. There's no other way around it.
Well, and it's a gift to our animals, our children, our employees, because then we're not resentful. If we keep good care of ourselves, we show up more giving and more loving. So it's actually more productive to take some time if we need a break from whichever, so that we can come back and do it in a loving way, whatever our roles in life are.
100%, because if not, you definitely build up that resentment after a while. And I called it leaking. It comes out inappropriately. It's when you blow up, right? Like that one thing sets you off, but that's because it's been rising and building, and you've been stuffing it and quiet and not using your voice. And then you just lose it, So hopefully it doesn't get to that. All right. We got to talk about the amazing Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell. Wowza. The country and America's first female MD, the first medical doctor. And you have her under the Wise Woman Sage category, of course. Wow. I mean, what a powerhouse she was. She basically did the impossible and became the first woman in the United States to obtain an MD. She applied to nearly 30 medical schools, got rejected. I mean, she could have very easily been the warrior, right? She was one with grit and determination despite all the setbacks. I mean, everybody, maybe you can paint the picture for us. I mean, we're talking the mid, like, not 1821 to 1840-ish is when she really was doing all this. I mean, not obviously there were no women doctors back then, but I mean, women didn't even work other than maybe being a teacher. So this was a complete, like, wow, this woman was the example of like mindset, and despite the world throwing everything at you of obstacles, persevering and basically doing the impossible.
Right. And I used her as an example because we often think, there aren't role models because, right, like you, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and codependent and said, well, it was my society. That's the way it was. I was like, well, no, it wasn't. There were women breaking glass ceilings. And one that I got to meet in particular was Gloria Steinem, who's now 90. Wow. And I put her as a sage, but she was a women's activist, and still is. But the most impressive thing about her when I met her in person was how soft-spoken, how lovable she was. And it's like, wow, talk about an integrated woman. Yeah. Because she was a warrior fighting for women's rights. She is a sage. She's written so much, and she's still an activist. But I saw her speak in person, and questions she would get from the audience, she was so kind and compassionate back. She didn't say like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Like, and she was never angry and upset, and wow. I thought that's a very integrated woman. And yes, you and I don't know what our audience is, if it's what age group women, but I guess I was a little irritated that my mom would give the answer. My mom's still alive. Like, well, that's just the way it was. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Like, Gloria Steinem's older than my mom and still an activist. And there were women before that. And that's why I wanted to give examples out there so we can tap into it, even though maybe we're disappointed that our own mom was not the role model. Like, I used to laugh, I wish Hillary Clinton was my mom, like I wish I'd had this strong woman as a mom, but maybe if I had, I wouldn't have had to look so hard for role models in my life. But I did look for other role models because my mom is a very passive woman, and kind of the victim mentality. And I wanted to see women that could rose above. And somehow I had that within me. Thank God I have that warrior within me. I have that sage. And like you, I was my father's daughter. I guess we thought of it as masculine. I was always the
Yep.
athlete growing up and the
Yep.
student. But I think there are, we are very feminine too. So it's like we don't want to be put in just one category. I still
Yes.
love the girly girl things. I love sex. I love having fun. So it's like, no, you can't put me in one category.
Amen.
We're all of those things.
Amen. I love it. You're talking my language, Barbara. I agree. I always say we're all of it in a bag of chips. So yeah, I mean that is so great. And, on that note, what was your criteria for picking the 43 women that made the book?
Well, that's the hardest part is because
Yeah.
most men, I think this would be a fun, anyone listening, go and ask a man who he admires. He'll list 5 like that. And you ask a woman and she'll like, oh, I have to think about it. So it's like this book was so important. It's like, yes, there are women besides our moms that we can tap into. It's just not as public as it has been with men. Like there's so many, we're not talking about men today, but that would be a fun experiment. So I only picked 4 for each just to give women an idea. And then they could go from there to find more because there's so many inspirational women and it is hard to categorize them as mothers, lovers, warriors, and sages. But what I did is I brought out those qualities. For example, Madonna, I put as in Aphrodite. Now, you could say she's a warrior because she's broken so many glass ceilings, but I put her as a lover because she just keeps reinventing herself and she just refuses to be this little old lady that stays home and knits, like she's reinvented herself so many times and just kind of gone against the culture in a fun way that to me, she's a lover. I put her in that category for me. But for somebody else, they might think of someone else as like who in your life, maybe you can tell me that's not in the book that inspires you as a lover or Aphrodite, that fun, free spirit that forever young.
Yeah, again, that was part of my search, and because like you, I didn't have that role model at all, and I say this all the time on my show. I feel like as women, we are lacking strong, integrated female role models. We just don't see them. I mean, they're extremes, or like you said, we're all of it, right? But we might see a piece of it in this woman or that woman, but really, where is the complete full package woman? Maybe men are the same way. So I didn't really have it at all. And that's probably why it was lacking in my life very much. Because, my world, it was always like, it was poo-pooed to be, being a girl was an insult. Like, you play like a girl, you throw like a girl. I mean, don't cry like a girl. Oh, don't be a girl. Or, it was always an insult. I mean, God forbid I identify with being girly. In the way I grew up, I was very much a tomboy, and I had a brother, and I was athletic like you. So, I mean, my God, I tried to wear pants under my first communion dress because I didn't want to wear a dress because we grew up Catholic, and I got in trouble with all the nuns because I had pants on, and they sent me home and had me take off my pants. So it was like a thing, to being a girl or feminine, and that Aphrodite was something you did not want to cultivate. Not at all. I think it's interesting.
Well, Madonna was Catholic and she broke a lot of those rules. So.
Yeah, she broke a lot of things.
Yeah, and now we have, I guess for younger girls, we have Lady Gaga, who's broken lots of rules. We have Taylor Swift. So we have a lot of younger role models. And, Cher just came out with her book, which she's much older. But so I think there are women out there. They may not be our particular relatives, but we can tap into it when we see it in someone else. That means we have it within ourselves, and maybe not to that level. I've done burlesque dancing, and no, I'm not Madonna, but I dance in my own way, and she brings that out on me. And another lover example I gave was Ellen DeGeneres or Tina Fey, because they have a sense of humor. And that's what you were feeling like you lost, that playfulness, that laughter that we all lose as we it's easy to lose because of the responsibilities of life, and you're tapping back into that. So I commend you for that.
And those are nutrients. Those are nutrients that we need. You know, they make life worth living. And it's like we're not getting them. So hats off to you. I think it's interesting you have Barbie in the lover category. Tell us why you chose Barbie as lover.
Well, I did put a couple that weren't real because I I want I'm kind of making it tongue in cheek, like Barbie has it all. Well, you can have it all too, but Barbie isn't real. But Barbie is. I love, like, I even spoke to Mattel, and it was before the Barbie movie came out that this book came out. But
Oh, wow.
Barbie was Mattel says, let's quit talking about her body. So it's not about what Barbie looks like. It's about what Barbie can be. And it was the first doll that came out in the 1950s that girls could dream about what they wanted to be as an adult. Before that, they only had baby dolls, so they'd only be mommies. But now Barbie could have her own house. Barbie could have whatever career she wanted. Barbie could have whatever she wanted. So I do encourage that play for children. And they say now, I'm a grandmother now, and the boys have dolls too. So it's like, it's not just for girls. It's like, let's bring the boys into the house so the girls can leave. Well, let's bring the boys into playing too and being creative. And that doesn't make them sissies, or, I don't want to use the word gay, but like a lot of dads will say, no, my son can't have a doll. Well, that's ridiculous. They're just playing about what they want to be when they grow up. And it's our imagination. So I put her as a lover. It's like, we can all dream about what we want to be, and we can become it. Now, maybe not to the same level as Barbie in the movie or the same level as Madonna, but on some level, we can all achieve and become who we want to become. So it's, who do you admire? And that's why it's so great, if there's any moms or grandmas out there, it's so great to have the kids play dolls, because they do that in therapy, and you can see what issues they're working out. You can see what their dreams are. It's all a land of pretend, but it's showing us who they are when they're playing dolls.
And you can see how they resolve conflict. A lot of
Yes.
it's about the relationship. Well, a great aspect of your book is at the end of each section, and correct me if I got these wrong, but mother, lover, warrior, and sage, you have questions for exploration, which is a brilliant idea, because I'm always like, even on my show, I'm always trying to bring things down to boots on the ground, like practical application. Like, this is a really cool conversation, but how do I apply this to my life to get changes and results and get closer to who I want to be in the life of my dreams, right? So in the lover, these questions are great, Barbara. You've got, what do you consider to be your primary passion in life? See, these are all things for us to even think about. Probably don't really even think about that at all. Like, what am I passionate about? That's so important. And when you think about your sensual side, what images come to mind? I mean, what is sensuality to you at all? I mean, I talk to women about that all the time. I mean, there's a difference between sensual and sexual, and sensuality is another nutrient as physical animal beings that we require. I mean, it's a huge part of our essence. Another question, how do you show people you love them? And what makes you feel most loved? And how does your creativity manifest? These are all questions you pose in the book for us to explore when, exploring our Aphrodite, our lover energy. So those are brilliant.
Well, it keeps us young. And obviously, if they're listening to this podcast, they're open to self-reflection.
Yes.
Now, those questions are heavy. And most people will say, I can't even think about that, because they're just existing. They're on the hamster wheel. They're just going through life. What's the next thing? But if we ever get off the hamster wheel to stop and look at these things, we can tap into Aphrodite. And I say stay forever young, in that, how you were talking about the maiden to the crone. Well, the maiden would be the lover, and the crone would be the sage or the wise woman. But I'm saying, let's mix it all up. Like, we don't have to wait till we're 90 to be wise. And I use Malala of Pakistan as an example, and Anne Frank, a young woman who wrote about the Nazis. How wise was she? Otherwise, we would not know. So, and Malala, as you know, was shot for wanting women to be able to go to school. And
Yeah.
she's only in her 20s. So we can be wise when we're young. Let's bring in that wisdom. But we can also be loving and playful and sexual when we're older. Otherwise, we are just all dried up. So, yeah, let's bring that lover in and let's keep it until the day we die. As long as we have our health and our attitude, we can be playful and fun and find a way to bring all that into our life. And that is what keeps us young, because we think of the maiden and young and the lover as young, but um, it doesn't have to end once we get married. I mean, that would be horrible if the lover ended in her 20s, right? Wouldn't that be horrible?
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. This is such a critical thing, Barbara, particularly for women in the wise woman stage, kind of rounded the bend, and they've come to the hard realization that they've probably lived more than half their life already. Like, wow, that's a real wake-up call, my friends. When you really kind of reassess your life, and that's where you take your inventory of, oh my God, like you really feel in your gut, in your soul, the finiteness of life. Like, I'm not going to live forever. Like, wow, I only have so many years left. But it's so important that we, if not for maybe even the first time for many women, tap into that lover energy in that stage of our life. Because again, you hit the nail on the head. That's what really keeps you young. That's the juice. I mean, think of a dried up sponge or a prune, right? Like, we need that moistness. I mean, water is the feminine element. I mean, that's very, very important to keep that juiciness. That's what keeps us young in spirit and in body.
And that's creativity. So creativity is giving birth to ideas. The other thing is, if we thought we'd live forever, we'd procrastinate, but we don't have forever. So that makes us do it now, because we don't have it forever. And the lover in us is the creativity. So if we're not having children, we could be doing a project or decorating our home, or there's so much creativity that keeps us young, that keeps us excited about the next step.
100%. And it's that child's mind. It's like the irony is that stage kind of brings you back full circle. I think it's Carl Jung who talks about the second simplicity, because in the child stage where, life is kind of simple, right? And when we go full circle in the circle of life, when we go to the wise woman, the crone, ultimately, we're coming back to that simplicity. That's when people pare down their life and they're trying to, what's that expression in design? Minimalism, right? Or they downsize the house, or they clean out the garage. They want to get rid of the clutter. They have a very complicated life and too much. And they've kind of pulled it back and realized, I want a simple life. And they realize what's really important. Like, being able to have time to go out in their yard, in their garden, to be able to have time to smell the roses. It's that second simplicity that you realize, like, I just want it simpler. And it's a beautiful gift to live long enough to get to that. I think is very important. One that I'm starting to understand.
So Edith Edgar says, be childlike, not childish.
I love that. Who said that? I've heard that before.
Edith Edgar. She was another inspirational woman that has survived being a Nazi prisoner.
Wow.
And she's childlike and dances at 80. And, and if she can find the child within and the joy, that's an inspiration to the rest of us.
100%. Thank you for telling me the name of her, because I've used that quote before. It's one of my favorites, and I never knew who to attribute it to. So that's wonderful. So, Barbara, as we get to the end here, my goodness, I don't even know where the time went, but what are some of the biggest takeaways for you personally in what you learned from the book and researching these women? Anything that really was some of the biggest lessons for you?
Well, thank you for asking. Actually, I love to study what I want to learn, and I feel like I have grown. And they say it's not what we achieve by accomplishing something, but who we become. And I feel like I've become a more integrated person after writing this book and working with other women who are wanting the same fulfillment in life, to be integrated and have that joy and still have that creativity and accomplish our goals and have a connection. That's the best thing I've gained, I guess, from all of this is the connection with other women, to be vulnerable and talk about these things.
Healing that sister wound, right? That terrible, somehow maybe in the, what was it, the 40s or the 30s or something, where it was like the competition mentality, right? Like a woman stealing your man and all this garbage, and really healing that deep wound that's kind of in the psyche of a lot of women, of like, the better she looks, the more I feel inferior, But I love how you've said a few times, what people can be a mirror of us, and we're in touch with how we feel, of how we react to seeing a beautiful woman or seeing someone who's got a great life. And for us to self-reflect, to use your words, to think about how am I reacting to that? Am I thinking, oh, roll the eyes, right? Must be nice for her. She's got this and that, and poor me. Like, it's rather than noticing, perhaps if you can react like, wow, that's inspiring. Like, she's role modeling for me that's possible. Or like, what can I learn from that to be more like that? I think that's very valuable. So for us to be conscious of how we react to things in life, whether they're contributing to our growth and being more self-actualized in who we are, or, are we using them as kind of like bumpers, that we're kind of like they're abrasions, and we're kind of falling into that victim mentality of, well, I'm different, or that doesn't apply to me,
Yeah, they say follow your envy. So if there's something we admire or envy in somebody else, then let's tap into that ourselves, because we have that too.
And I love, again, back to the mirror thing, you're saying like what we love about another woman is because it's reflecting a part that's in us that might need to be expressed, to bring it out. It's very, very important. Wow, that's powerful stuff. So anyone in particular in your book stand out the most for you? Like the most shocking, or I don't know, just impactful?
No, I love them all and more. So I couldn't say just one.
How about with your clients and the women you work with? Any stories you want to share with us of a woman who kind of was able to bring out that warrior in herself, and maybe how she did it, or the lover, or anything, a learning lesson for us?
Well, Tammy Duckworth says, I got my legs blown off in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And because I did, that gives me a platform to fight for the rights of other amputees and help with healthcare. And she's a woman that has inspired a lot of my clients and my patients, because they're not saying, poor me, I got my legs blown off. They're saying, okay, this is giving me a platform to do something else with my life. And so I guess she's one of my most inspirational, because Tammy Duckworth is active today in Congress. So there are women right now that can inspire us, that whatever setbacks we have in life, we can be inspired to go forward and have a new purpose and meaning in our life.
That's such a beautiful example, because it's like, your wound is your gift, right? Your wound is your offering. So this poor woman, my God, she lost both her legs. I mean, that is a complete nightmare, right? But her mindset was, she reframed it as that gave her the platform to get her message out. I mean, that's from victim to victor for sure. Very inspiring. If we could all do that in our own way, all the little things, wouldn't we be better off? It took you 20 years to write this book?
Well,
I mean,
I've been
wow.
working with clients and working on this in my field for 20 years. So yeah, it did take me that long to actually put it together. It felt like it was really valuable for clients and it's a beautiful coffee table book. Just people like to have it out. So
yes, it is. I like the artwork. Well, that makes me feel better, Barbara, because my course was supposed to be out last year in 2024. And it's evolved into this behemoth. It's taken on a life of its own. I think I have an archetypal possession, but I'm enjoying it. It's just become much more of a big project than I thought it was going to be. So when I hear that you said your book took you 20 years, I'm like, okay, I don't feel so bad now. It's taken me a couple of years, but it's going to be worth the wait. Just like
it will be. And like you said, it's really hard to make these great philosophies practical for women. And
right.
that's the difficult part, putting it into the practical for day to day.
Particularly when you're talking about the concept of archetypes and stuff. It's not like it's everyday, words like what the heck is an archetype and how is that going to help me get through my day, but very, very powerful, very inspiring. I love the concept because you're giving examples of women who've done it that we can tap into like it's been done. Any thoughts as we close here on Princess Diana? Because I can't let you go without her because I would say she's a role model for many, I would think.
Well, and that's a double-edged sword. It's bittersweet because she died in her 30s, and I feel like she died just when she was becoming self-actualized to actually contribute. So that is why it's a little bit sad. Right. She was a lover in that, she helped with the AIDS epidemic, but she was just coming into her own. And you think of our age and to die at 30, that is a shame because I think she had so much potential to really contribute, and she kind of died right when she was beginning to do that. So I put her in there because so many people admire her, and maybe for different reasons. And it ends up there's plays about her. It's not because they want to be the princess. It's because she was a kept woman who finally found her freedom. So that's why I put her. And she was just beginning to evolve and give back to the world when she died. So.
True. All true. Yeah. No, you nailed it. I would say that's exactly how people looked at her. Beautiful. Well, what's next for you, Barbara?
Well, you inspired me. This was really fun. I'm just thankful that I got to meet you. So thank you. I'm just enjoying the day. Thank you.
I agree. I wish we lived closer because right now I'd be like, hey, let's go take a walk.
Yeah.
Well, I have very close friends and colleagues in Orange County. So perhaps on my next trip out, I will look you up and we can meet for coffee or something. It'd be lovely.
That would be great. That would be great.
Well, okay. So any final thoughts before you share with us how we can find you in this wonderful book, which I know people can get off Amazon like I did. So please, any final thoughts today for the audience?
You can follow me at Barbara McNally. I have a foundation that I offer support at groups for wives of wounded warriors. And I've written 3 books. So you could find me, Barbara McNally. I have my own website or on Amazon or any local bookstore.
And just tell us quickly, Wounded Warriors, what is that?
Wounded. Well, the everything's under my name makes it simple. It's the Barbara McNally Foundation. The books are Wounded Warrior, Wounded Wife, and Spa Day is support, purpose, and appreciation. And that's what we do for the wives of wounded warriors to help them take time to care for themselves so that they can go back and joyfully care for their families.
Okay, but Wounded Warriors, you're referring to veterans, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just for the audience to understand. So your work with Wounded Warriors is to help the spouses of wounded war veterans integrate back into the world, which is, wow, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
You've certainly done amazing work. Your daughters must be very proud of their mama.
Well, they're on their journey and balancing and integrating is harder than we think, right?
Especially in this day and age, I tell you. Yes. But you know what, Barbara, and I can just tell you from my position of knowing you about like an hour and a half, it looks like you've become the mother you wanted to be or wanted to have. You've become the mother for your daughters.
That's a good point. Yes, I have. And that's a catapult for if we've had tragedies or past we didn't like, we have the opportunity to change it for the future. So I definitely think I have broken some glass ceilings and changed what a role model of a woman can be.
Right on.
Thank you.
Like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world, right? It's like, and I say this all the time, we have to reparent ourselves and give to ourselves, be the parent we didn't have for ourselves. And you did that. So hats off to you. And you're still a very young woman. So wow, the rest of your life is going to be great.
I'm excited. I am excited. Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on Awakening Aphrodite. I really appreciate it. I know everybody got a lot out of it. Guys, if you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Please rate the show, leave a review, say how amazing Barbara was, share it with another girlfriend who needs to hear it, and do check out her website and this beautiful book, Four Faces of Femininity. Is so fantastic, and Barbara's foundation. And thanks for being part of bringing in the beautiful new world, everyone. We'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.